So we sent it in as the rare rabbit as a tar baby. You know, please don't attack us. And of course they did. And Loyola Burns stuck his fist in and got stuck, and the other fist got stuck, and his feet got stuck, and now he's stuck with the boat. It's costing the Canadian government $4,000 a day. A few weeks later, they went into court and they said that we could have our ship back if we pay a $50,000 bond. And I said, well, we're not going to pay a ransom. But the judge said, well, Sea Shepherd never asked for the ship back. What are you doing in court? And the Crown prosecutor said, well, we're trying to give them the ship back. This is beginning to be a little embarrassing internationally. And I said, well, we'll take the ship back under the following conditions. 1, you drop the charges against the crew. 2, you return it in the condition you received it. 3, I want $1,000 a day for every day you had it. 4, I want an apology from the Minister of Fisheries for what he did. You give me those and you can give us our ship back. So Harley Bowman is sitting there doing valuable work, and they go to trial next year during the seal hunt because they figure that'll keep us all tied up. But hopefully there won't be a seal hunt next year because of the European vote. We'll see. Unfortunately, Canada's come up with this new bizarre scheme to kill 300,000 seals to provide heart valves for transplant patients, and that's I mean, it's a ridiculous sort of thing, but this is the kind of thing that they're involved in. Canada is spending incredible amounts of money to justify and support the slaughter of seals. And I think it's just something that's really pathologically wrong with Canadian politicians. I haven't really been able to put my finger on it, but as a Canadian, I've been opposing this for all of my life, and it's something I really haven't been able to understand. This year, the Canadian government killed 4 sealers. They were pulling one of the sealing vessels that had broken its rudder. It overturned. The sealers drowned in the ice, and immediately they focused their attention on us to blame, as like we were responsible. And the media came to me and they said, what was my response? And I said, well, it was a real tragedy that 4 men died because of the incompetence of the Canadian government. But it's a far greater tragedy that 325,000 seals are being brutally killed on the ice. Oh, they just went nuts on that one. Said it was the worst possible timing to make a statement like that. And of course, it was the best possible timing because we wouldn't have covered it any other time. They got me on national television and they said, are you ready? Are you prepared and ready to apologize to the sealers of Canada for your insensitive statements? I said, yes, I am. And they turned the camera on me and says, I apologize for being a Canadian and being associated with the most barbaric entities on the face of the planet. Because what struck me here was one of the sealers who observed the drowning of the men saying, when I saw the men in the ice, I never saw anything more helpless in my life. Such a sense of hopelessness and helplessness came over me, I could do nothing. And I said, I'll tell you what helpless is being a baby seal, 12 days old, watching some cigarette, smoking guy coming towards you with a club ready to bash your brains, and that's helpless. That's right! But again, that was called grossly insensitive, but you know, I don't really care. I represent it. Our clients are whales and seals and sharks and sea turtles and birds, and quite frankly, whatever people say in criticism of what we do to protect them, we don't care. If you go in to liberate a chicken, you know, from a factory farm, you're doing it for the chicken. It doesn't matter what people think about it. The chicken's going to be grateful. After we sank out the ice in the whaling fleet back in 1986, and we were criticized, and somebody said, you know, that this was incredibly insensitive and unforgivable and an act of eco-terrorism that we could do such a thing. And I said, well, I don't care. And they said, well, I think you should be concerned about what people, especially in the movement, think about your behavior. I said, look, you know, we didn't sink those whaling ships for anybody in the movement. We didn't sink it for any human being. We sank them for the whales. Find me one whale anywhere on the planet who disagreed with what we did that day. I promise we won't do it again. We have to speak for them. The other campaigns that we've been involved in is also the protection of sharks. Now, we've been over the years been accused of, you know, representing seals because they're cute, cuddly, or whales because they're magnificent creatures. But, you know, how come these people never protect the ugly animals like sharks? Well, the fact is sea sharks are involved with protecting plankton and sea cucumbers, and it doesn't get much more unattractive than that, really. But the media doesn't cover it. Last year, we seized 45,000 shark fins in Ecuador and 100,000 sea cucumbers, and arrested the poachers involved in it. And we did get coverage on the sharks, but nobody cared about the sea cucumbers. But, you know, every one of these species is equally important when you get right down to it. Last year, I was criticized quite severely by the Fox Network because I made a statement that worms were more important than people. Now, you have to make these kind of statements to get their attention, otherwise, you know, they're oblivious. But they said, well, how could you make such an incredibly stupid statement? And I said, well, it's not stupid at all. I happen to say it because it's true. People, worms can live on the planet Earth without people, but people cannot live on the Earth without worms. So ecologically, they're far more important than we are. Remove the honeybees, we're in trouble. Remove us, honeybees will be happy along with a lot of other species. I can tell you that. Debating this whaler who said, well, Watson, you said that whales are more intelligent than people. This is an incredibly stupid thing to say. How can you say something like that? I said, well, because it's true. Whales are more intelligent than people. They have larger brains, more complex brains, and I was explaining this, and he says, but I also said, but the one criteria that most defines intelligence is the ability to live in harmony with the natural world, to live with other species. And by that criteria, we're not very intelligent. And he said, well, by that criteria, cockroaches are more intelligent than people. I said, George, you're beginning to understand what I'm trying to teach you. Because if we're going to survive, we're going to have to learn to live in harmony with all of the other species, from the very minute bacteria to the great whales, because of the ecological law of interdependence and the law of diversity. Right now, we are living in a time of the greatest destruction of diversity on this planet over the last 65 million years. This is what Richard Leakey describes as the fourth major extinction in world history, the last one being 65 million years ago at the end of the Jurassic period. In fact, they just developed a name for the period that we're in called the Holocene. And the Holocene period means, this is the event that's happening right now, is that we will lose more species between 1980 and 2045, in that 65-year period, and we've lost in the last 65 million years. That rate of extinction is unprecedented, and we are responsible for it. And it takes the planet Earth 10 to 20 million years to come back from a major extinction event. Now the problem is the Earth will survive. We won't, unless we learn to live in harmony with the natural world, because throughout the entire history of the planet, no species has survived and who has not abided and lived in accordance with the three basic laws of ecology: the law of diversity, law of interdependence, and the law of finite resources. Right now, the most serious problem in the world is not global warming. It's the destruction of the biodiversity on this planet. The Earth will adapt to global warming and has done that in the past. But the problem is that we are destroying our oceans. The fishermen right now, the fishermen is the most ecologically destructive occupation on the face of this planet. Fishermen can destroy civilization and cause the extinction of the human species. And why I say that is that every single fishery in the world today is in a state of collapse. Every single one. The oceans are dying. Captain Jacques Cousteau said just before he died, the oceans are dying in our time. We must do something to do it, to turn this around. And how is this involved with the meat industry? The fact is that nearly half of the fish that is taken out of the ocean isn't eaten by people. It's fed to animals, to cows, to pigs, to chickens. The pig is the largest aquatic predator on the planet today. Pigs eat more fish than all the world's sharks put together. Domestic house cats eat more tuna fish than all the world's seals put together. So when they say we have to reduce seal populations to protect fish stocks, as they put it, we're feeding more to the cats. And it's not even the natural food of cats. Name me one cat that can wrestle up half a ton of tuna to the ground and eat it.